Humans have a long history of migration. Our ancestors migrated from one part of the planet to another in search of resources. Today we plan to migrate to space and other planets. We need infrastructure to survive the harsh environment beyond Earth. Most importantly, we need to reproduce successfully. A space biotech startup is trying to address this fundamental question. Hello and welcome to Rocket Biologist, the show where we meet experts in medicine and biology. I'm your host, Dr. Adil Nasir. My cosmic comrades, I present to you Dr. Egbert Edelbrock, the founder and the CEO of SpaceBorn United, who will talk about his vision for human reproduction in space. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Hello and welcome to Rocket Biologist. Hi Egbert, how are you doing today?
Hi Adil, it's good to see you and thanks for having me in your podcast.
Well, pleasure is all mine. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, first question, who is Egbert Edelbrock?
Yeah, so I would summarize myself as a passionate space life science scientist and entrepreneur who loves to innovate and help humanity stretch her comfort zone into space. I'm born and raised in the Netherlands. I'm in my 40s. Let's keep it at that. And I'm also the biological father of a few children, being a sperm donor. Yeah, I think that's a summary.
Well, that's the first time I think I'm meeting the real Egbert. So moving further, so will you please tell us about your metamorphosis from Egbert to Dr. Edelbrock? How did this take place?
Well, the detail means that I got this title, which means I earned a PhD, and that was in courage development in organizations. I always like to innovate and help people and companies innovate. Also, I usually choose to work as an entrepreneur. So I was often exploring boundaries and stretching my comfort zone and helping others to do so. And I figured out a key success factor in achieving that was courage. So I did a deep dive during my PhD research in courage development. And that gave me my doctor's title in the Netherlands.
Well, you definitely need courage to get that title. So congratulations, doctor.
Thanks.
Okay, so how on Earth, or let's say in your case, how off Earth, you got interested in the subject of human reproduction in space?
Yes, so it all started with myself choosing to become a sperm donor for an IVF clinic in the Netherlands some 12 years ago. And in that role, I learned more and more about these technologies in the IVF clinics. Like the embryo incubator. And this got me thinking more and more. And it started combining with my passion for space and space exploration. And there I got the idea to explore if it could be possible to re-engineer some of these existing IVF technologies to make them work in space. Because if we want to create human settlements beyond Earth, which I support, we also need to figure out how to safely reproduce there. So that's where it started.
Well, that sounds like a fascinating story. Let me ask you this question that please tell us that what is SpaceBorn United and how was SpaceBorn born?
Like the question. So the first part, what is SpaceBorn? What do we do and why? So we focus on two key goals. We want to enable safe stages of human reproduction in space eventually, to support the goals of becoming an interplanetary species. And the second goal is to improve fertility treatments on Earth. And we achieve this by developing technology, a small automated mini lab, like a small shoebox size device that enables automated conception and early embryo development in space. And we developed the space missions and the missions architecture to enable applying this mini lab in space.
So basically, you are trying to revolutionize the existing technology and make it adaptable for space. That's what you're trying to do. That's what your enterprise is trying to do. Is that?
In a nutshell, that's what we're aiming for. Yes.
Okay. So do you really think that, even on Earth, we need that, that improved technology?
It's not so much that I'm not satisfied, but the need for assistance with natural reproduction is growing worldwide. More and more women want to focus on a career first and then start looking if they can start a family. But then the biology is not supporting that delay, and then women more often need the assistance from an IVF clinic. And sometimes there's problems with the male fertility as well. All these fertility rates are dropping worldwide. So the need for IVF clinics and IVF treatments continues to rapidly grow, and the sector is having problems to supply the amount of treatments, and they're kind of desperately looking for new technologies to improve the success rate of the treatment, because it's been kind of stagnating for about a decade now, around 50% success of each treatment. And with our technology, we expect we can raise that by about 20% at least.
All right. So that sounds like a promising plan for the future, even for Earth. So what's the vision of SpaceBorn for human reproduction beyond Earth? How do you see that? What's the vision there?
We support the goals of existing groups, existing space agencies, some commercial companies as well, to create independent human settlements beyond Earth that can be in Earth orbit. It can be on another planet like Mars. It can be in large spaceships beyond Earth in general, and it helps. It fuels our curiosity. It satisfies our natural tendency to look beyond the horizon. And in that process, we're gonna have so much innovation, so much spin-off that will also improve life on Earth, not just IVF, but many other factors. Also, it's a good way to create like an insurance for humanity and other species, like a backup plan, because there are some risks to life on Earth, to human life on Earth, man-made risks like nuclear war, natural risks like pandemics, or even super volcanoes waiting to explode and cause an ice age and stuff like that. There's artificial intelligence. We're not really sure if that's going to be safe for the next 100 years. There's these risks, and altogether it would probably be wise to have a backup plan and make a settlement that is independent from Earth, just to be sure that our species and, well, consciousness in general can continue to stay alive and thrive.
All right. So you did mention the word or the abbreviative IVF. You care to explain to audience what IVF is, please?
Yes. So it's short for in vitro fertilization. That means that the conception, the fertilization of the female cells will happen outside of the natural womb, outside of the female body, and in vitro, in glass, in a lab, and that is used for people, as I mentioned, that have issues, that have trouble to become pregnant in the natural way.
All right. Thank you for this elaboration. So now the question is that, there are a lot of space agencies working in different fields of space biology and medicine, and including human reproduction. If this is correct, what's the need of a startup or a enterprise like you to even exist in the first place?
You would imagine such a big topic, becoming multiplanetary and the crucial element of reproduction, that is something that space agencies are working on, and they must have been working on this for decades probably. That's what most people assume. Actually, that's what I assumed myself when I started wondering about this option. And quite quickly, I learned through all these discussions with space agencies that it's very difficult for them to address this challenge. They completely appreciate the need for this, to learn how to reproduce beyond Earth, but it's very difficult for them to address this challenge because they mainly work with taxpayer money, and it's not easy to get the support to spend taxpayer money on ethically delicate topics like exposing vulnerable embryos to the hazards of space, or later on potentially even a pregnant woman in space and expose that to the hazards. So they're explicit about this usually. So they support focused biotech research companies like us to address this, and that gives us an important reason to exist.
So you just mentioned that this is the reason that in first place that this startup like yours exists. It's because of the fact that the taxpayer money is going to these kind of studies can have some ethical implications. But in the end of the day, your startup is going to contribute to the society in one way or another. Who's supporting you if not the taxpayers?
Logical question, obviously. So because we are, as I explained, we're also improving life on Earth, not just enabling life beyond Earth, but also improving fertility success rates on Earth. This is a big, this is a huge need that we can satisfy. So the fertility sector, the IVF sector specifically, they are really interested in what we do, and they trust that we can improve the success rate. And so they're interested as investors, and there is angel investors that understand this rationale as well. Sometimes because they used IVF themselves, so they have a personal link to the topic. So it's also myself, I put my own financial reserves in SpaceBorn. So that's a mix, and of course there's some small grants that support SpaceBorn. And there is also actually a source of funding through the media, especially documentary, where there's a significant portion of the documentary budget that is going to SpaceBorn to enable us what we need to do.
So that's interesting. This last part, I think, is a lot of people will have interest in that. So care to share what documentary you're talking about and what is it all about?
Absolutely. So it's a documentary that really focuses on fertility and the challenges in the fertility sector. 1 in 6 couples worldwide need assistance from an IVF clinic. I already summarized those challenges. So the documentary is focusing on the past, the present, and the future of fertility, and how SpaceBorn is working in the present and working on the future of fertility with this advanced biotech in space. So it's going to be structured in those 3 episodes, and they've started following us, and they will be following us for a year and a half, and then there will be included in the documentary also the very first IVF baby in the world, Louise Brown, living in the UK. She's going to be part of the documentary, and also the very first IVF baby in the US, who's also a woman. She's now 43, and she's also going to be in the documentary.
Well, are you including any first IVF baby from other parts of the world, or it's mostly UK and US, the Western world?
We're open to anything. I'm not a producer, of course, also, but I know that the producer is open to explore options to further enrich the narrative and the documentary.
Oh, that's wonderful. And where people can watch that documentary?
At the moment, Discovery and CNN are very excited. So it seems likely that one of them will be the client who's going to finance it and release it in about a year and a half.
Well, thank you for saying those names. Now finally can claim I was part of the advertisement. Thank you. Okay, so I will claim, advertisement money from CNN and what's the other one?
Of course, Discovery.
Okay, all right. I'll keep that in mind. Tell us about the strategies and, technologies that as the SpaceBorn United is offering for reproduction in space.
Yes, so we are focusing on the very first two stages of reproduction, fertilization and the first week of embryo development, the first 5 to 6 days, until the embryo reaches what they call the blastocyst stage. And our technology is that little shoebox size mini lab that offers the life support systems, the right pressure, humidity, things like this. And there is a microfluidic disc inside. And in the disc, there are all these little chambers. And in those chambers, that's where the magic will happen. That's where the female cells are waiting for the sperm cells. And once the mini lab is in space, the sperm will meet with the eggs and fertilize. And it's a disc, and it is designed to rotate, because if this satellite where our mini lab is operating inside is orbiting the Earth, it would experience microgravity, but we want the embryos to experience a certain level of gravity, initially similar to Earth gravity, and we achieve this by rotating the disk at a certain speed. But changing that rotation speed also enables us to study other gravitational effects, like the Martian gravity effect, on embryo development. So the life support systems, the microfluidic system, and of course, we want to make sure that the embryos are developing in a healthy way. So we need to monitor that with a sensor package that includes visual sensors, micro cameras, and also other biological variables that we're measuring to make sure that the development goes well. And also, a crucial element is we want to identify substances, biomarkers that are created by the embryos because they are in a different gravity environment. So the embryos go into this kind of survival state where they produce different chemicals, different substances, and some of them will be helpful for the process on Earth. So we need to identify them with these sensors inside the mini lab as well.
Okay, so you did mention about the microfluidic chip. So care to explain what microfluidic chip is?
So it enables it's also referred to often as a lab on a disk or lab on a chip technology, with all these new modern electronics and devices like microfluidic devices. It says it by itself. It's also compact, and if you send experiments to space, that's expensive, so you want to miniaturize as much as possible. And this microfluidic disk is also like a miniaturized laboratory on a small disk, like the former compact disk size. That's what people need to imagine. And there's these little chambers inside. It's like if you would stack 3 or 4 compact disks on top of each other, you get an idea of the thickness. So there's some small chambers in the disk where the embryos can have the nutrients and the growth medium, and little channels relocate sperms to the cells and allow for some rinsing processes. And there's some micro pumps on it. It's also tiny, and that enables this unique process inside a small shoebox in this mini lab.
So this is one of the component of your mini lab that you are referring to, and its mini lab is consists of a bit more complicated piece of equipment. That's what you are telling us, or there is
exactly. It's existing technology, existing IVF technology, but re-engineered to make it work in space. And in a later stage, we also want to enable cryogenic freezing inside the mini lab. So after 5 days of embryo development, we want to pause the development of the embryo in the same way that they do it in IVF clinics, but of course, again, miniaturized and automated. So eventually we will also protect the embryos by freezing them, and we protect them for the sample return. So when they go back to Earth, that's quite an aggressive maneuver with a lot of vibration and G-forces. Those are not beneficial for the embryos, so the cryogenic freezing also protects them from this maneuver.
So on Earth, the cryogenic preservation is normally done by using liquid nitrogen, and that temperature sometimes reach to minus 196 degrees centigrade, something like that. How would you be able to reproduce that in space?
That's a little, maybe a slightly boring, long story. In general, we have started exploring approaches to realize this. So it will be similar, but with, again, miniaturized with only the minimum amount that we need for this procedure. And usually launch partners are not a great fan of air venting out of the system, so that will be part of the cryogenic freezing. And that's why we work with that's why we aim for dedicated missions. Our payload is the primary payload. We should control the mission. And if we are the primary payload or the only payload, our experiment cannot compromise other experiments. So that's part of how we navigate the cryogenic application in the future.
So in that regard, for example, this recent study from a Japanese group where they performed embryogenesis on the International Space Station using the device, and they were able to freeze the embryos at minus 80 degrees centigrade. Do you think that you can learn from that study something?
Absolutely. Especially it's easier to freeze at this higher temperature. Only minus 80 degrees is easier to achieve than minus 196. But we're still having discussions with IVF experts. Some believe that there's still some metabolic activity at that crazy low temperature. So it might not be beneficial. We might need to really aim for that very low temperature, maybe not 196, but maybe minus 130 or minus 150. But if it's feasible to do all of this with minus 80, that would be helpful to us. So we will certainly dive into it much further.
Okay, so thank you. Now that's an interesting acronym, I have to say, that, I'm familiar with assisted reproductive technology, but you are calling it ARTIS. So
Yes.
care to explain what ARTIS is?
Yeah,
This was pun intended. Okay.
Yeah, of course. And there's actually a zoo in the Netherlands that is called ARTIS. So
Okay.
We couldn't claim the artist.com, for example, but
Keep trying, huh?
we might have to negotiate about that later.
So what
We just added the
ARTIS is, if you can tell the audience, what ARTIS is. Yeah.
So we stole the 3 first digits, assisted reproductive technology, ART, that was already existing, and we just added in space. So you get assisted reproductive technologies in space, and then it's ARTIS. So that's what we call our mini lab the Artis mini lab, and we call our missions the Artis space missions.
So you added in space and you got that space. That's clever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. So basically, Artis is that mini lab that is going to perform all these experiments in space. That's the dream here. Okay.
Yes.
Wish you good luck with that. So now the question is that are you working with human embryos, or what you are doing?
We aim to eventually work with human gametes, create human embryos in space. Before you are allowed to do so, you have to prove that your technology is working as expected, as intended. You have to prove that if it's applied to animal models, mammalian models, mouse embryos, mouse gametes, if you examine the mouse embryos resulting from the experiments in your technology, it is a requirement before you can move on to the next stage. Also for the ethical approval committees, that's a requirement. But there is another part of another route to study human gametes. If there has been another experiment with, so to speak, leftover human gametes that were already ethically approved for some experiment, sometimes you can use them for experiments related to what we aim for, and that happened twice. One experiment was used for exposing human embryos or human oocytes. I would have to check that actually, and exposing them to hypergravity, so gravity more than Earth gravity, to simulate the forces during a launch. And we need to find out if launching human oocytes eventually is creating negative effects, and we need to mitigate that if that is the case. So far, early experiments indicate that it should not create important problems.
Because the question actually refers to this point that, that right now, this technology at a very early stage, you're not doing anything with human embryos, but mostly you're testing with model organisms like mice or some other organisms. Nothing is going on with human. That's just to make sure. Okay, so why did you choose, mouse embryo or mice embryo over bovine embryos? Because a lot of studies shows that the bovine embryos are closer to human embryos.
The research partners that we work with, they have their own animal lab, and they had certified, ethically approved mammalian models. So they're very helpful for our learning curve. And we are not excluding bovine gametes. Actually, we intend to also study them for the reason you just mentioned. But so far, we've been focusing on mouse gametes.
And I think the idea is that with mice, it's like much more molecular biology tools are available, which may not be the case with bovine embryo. That's also another reason that why mouse is a so popular organism to work with in the field of molecular biology and so on and so forth.
So we want to combine the learnings from both.
Yeah, because you eventually would need all that. So now, please explain step by step, like break it down, and you try to explain it to the 8 years old, what you are doing and in how many years you want to see the roadmap of your human reproduction in space.
So the end goal is to enable the whole 9-month cycle in space, from conception to birth in space. That's a multi-decade research roadmap. It's going to take a few, maybe even 5 to 10 years to define all the experiments in such a research roadmap. and then we probably need a few decades to execute that research roadmap. So our first milestone is achieving the first in-space conceived human embryo. The next milestone will be re-implanting an in-space conceived human embryo to grow into an actual human baby that was not conceived on Earth. There's a lot of homework we need to do before we are ready for that. So we need many space missions. Well, many, probably something between 7 and 10 missions. We are very proud. We did our first successful space mission in April this year. And that included a prototype of our mini lab, a very early prototype. And step by step, we're going to validate more subsystems with new space missions. And gradually, we move from just having embryos inside and testing the life support system to actually allowing for conception in space, and to actually also allow for conception in space and early embryo development and cryogenic freezing and sample return. So each mission we add to this roadmap until we reach that goal of the very first human embryo conceived in space.
Okay. So far, I think if I'm correct, that only one fish called Midaka fish, the Japanese fish that has performed this whole life cycle in space. Not any other species has performed, especially when it comes to mammalian cells or mammalian organisms. Their studies are very in an early stage, or there is no study that shows that from conception to actually giving birth to a full-fledged grown baby has been performed. So this is a very ambitious project. This is a very, as you said, that a lot of decades are needed. How far along are you in your project? Like, you're at the very initial stage, or do you have a timeline when you want to see a human baby being born in space? Like, give us some, timeline.
It depends on many things. The key challenge for any living organism in space is the radiation that is in space much higher than on Earth, and we don't have the protection of 10 kilometers of atmosphere, etc. And we need everything that lives on Earth is designed with Earth gravity. So if you change that, it changes the biology, and not always for the better. So if you can facilitate a level of gravity in space that is somewhat similar to Earth, that can be successful mitigated. And also for radiation resistance, both externally by shielding and internally with pharmaceuticals, with lifestyle, with diet or anything. So we're not going to do all those things. We know that there's space stations being in development with a large gravity wheel. So the initial growth towards this scenario is progressing well, but it depends on how successful they will be, how quickly they will be able to have stable, reliable, Earth-like gravity and sufficient radiation protection. Those things need to be in place before our roadmap can progress similarly. But some rough idea, I think in about 30 years, 20 to 30 years, we should have the first human birth in space.
My cosmic comrades, we will continue our intergalactic conversation in the next episode. Until then, stay curious and stay connected, as we are just beginning our odyssey into the heart of the universe.